Hey, this is Paul Stolt from Super Easy Apps. Welcome to this video. I'm going to show you how to upgrade a Swift 2 project for Swift 4. This is a little bit complicated. There's two sort of routes that you can go down. One is you can try and use the tools that Apple provides to fix it. Unfortunately, that won't really work for Swift 2, and there's kind of two workarounds. So when I go and I open this is a Swift 2 project that I wrote a couple of years ago, and when I open it, what we're going to see is that Xcode is going to have some issues. So it's going to say unsupported Swift version. It's going to tell us that the app needs to be migrated in Xcode 8. So in order to do that, you're going to have to jump through some hoops, and you're going to have to download Xcode 8, which I have downloaded, and you're going to have to install that. Now, that's pretty complicated, but you can find Xcode 8, and I'll show you the link. So that would be the developer.apple.com/download/more. This is the link that you need to use in order to get that to work. You're going to find Xcode 8 somewhere on this list. So you can search for Xcode and you could turn off things, but here is Xcode 8. You want the latest version of Xcode 8 and it's right here. And I'll include a link to this, but you can just click this link to download it, and that will get you Xcode 8, which you then could try to use to open the project. But rather than waste all that time of downloading 4 gigabytes of data and trying to install it side by side, we're just going to try and manually update this app. So we're just going to go through the process. We're going to encounter some bugs. We're going to encounter some issues. It's going to crash. It probably won't work, but we're going to fix all of these issues in this lesson. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to switch this over to an iPhone 8, and then I am going to hit play. So right away, we're going to see some issues. What I'm going to do before I even get started, just so I have a backup, is I'm going to create a Git repository. So this is going to be a local repository that these changes are going to get saved to. So we'll create this. This will create basically a change set. So if we need to revert, we can revert. Any of these changes that we are going to make are going to change a lot of different things. We might break something, and we want to be able to recover that. So Git is a source control. This is version control that allows us just to have a starting point. So that sets up a starting point for us. And the next thing we're going to do is go over to our issues. So I'll click on the issues tab on the left panel. And the first thing it's going to tell us is to upgrade the project. So a lot of things have changed with Swift, and there's some new settings that we want to enable. So we just press perform changes, and that fixes that issue. The next one we have is about the Swift version. And in order to fix this one, we have to go to the actual targets that we have in the settings. So we're going to click on our project settings up top. I'm going to turn this side panel on. I always like to have this on so I can see the project and any of the related apps. And you're going to need to select the actual app here. So this is your target. If you have multiple targets, you have to select each one and do this manually. Then you go to build settings, and under build settings, if we're under the basic version, not all is going to have a lot of stuff, but if we switch back to basic combined, this is going to show less things, and we're going to look for this Swift version. The alternative is you could just but you could search Swift, and you would see that this pops up. So either way works. Right now it's unspecified. We need to switch this to Swift 4. What we're trying to do is update our code. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get a whole slew of changes because Swift 4 makes pretty much everything different with the API calls. And so we're going to have to fix all of this. But thankfully, it's actually not that hard once you get into it. So let's go line by line, fixing each error that we have here. I've got 12 issues right now, and I don't even know what some of these are. I don't really understand what they are just yet, and that's fine. That's okay. We're going to work through each one of these one by one. All right, so I've got this one, and I'll just read off what I'm seeing here. So this is method table view. Number of rows in section has different argument names from those required by the protocol data source, which is table view numbers of rows in section. So the big distinction, and it's really hard to see here, and I find a lot of this gibberish to be not very helpful, but it is helpful at the same time. But if you don't know what's changed and why it's changed, then it's hard to understand like the big changes. And some of the big changes are just on the way we write APIs in Swift. They changed the style, and that meant that they changed all of the APIs that we use. And so the style change that we're seeing here, this is the new style. And this is the old style. Now, the old style repeated some of the names, and so they stopped repeating that, and they get rid of that by using this underscore. So that's what we're seeing here. This underscore means that you don't need to use the actual variable name in the parameter list. And so that's going to go away, and it's going to be replaced with this underscore in front of this. So if we hit fix, we should see now it inserted this underscore. And that is the difference, but that was enough to stop our program from working. Okay, so that has changed it so that it should match. Next, we've got some issues here. So other things that have changed is some of the NS classes have been renamed to not have the NS attributes. And then some of the APIs that reference these no longer have these attributes. So in this case, if we want to conform to the actual, we're not going to get quick help on this. The only way that we can sort of know what to do here is either to retype this method. So we could go through the process, and I'll show you how that works. If you just start typing table view, we want and I don't remember, we're on the cell for row at index. So we're going to press escape after table view. So I'm not typing anything except table view. This is going to give us sort of this code completion. And I'm going to just start typing cell for index. So don't put any spaces. And as we do this, we're going to see will display. Now, when you read these, this first part you're going to ignore. This part's the more important part of the name once we're at this stage. And so we don't want will display. We want cell for row at index. And you're going to select that and you're going to press enter. Now, when we do that, we're going to see that the method signature, that is this, has changed a little bit from what we see down below. And I'm going to hide this side panel so we can see this code. The big difference, we see that there's a underscore at the front. And then if we look at it, the actual text here has actually been simplified as well. And so this is going to complain about it's not matching. And we'll see what, let's comment this out. Let's see what Xcode recommends. So I'll just rebuild with Command B. And it actually is telling me that the index path is not explicitly convertible. So this fix it is actually wrong. This is going to tell us, okay, you fix that, and then we're going to probably have another issue, and it's going to tell us, okay, this one's not right. So it's been renamed, so let's reuse that. And now we're going to see, okay, this doesn't match up. So it's missing the cell argument. And so they changed the naming convention so that we actually have to introduce cell up top in order to get this to work. So let's fix that. And I don't think this is actually going to work as we expect, but we'll come back to that in a minute because I want to show you what happens if it is not working. Next up, we're down at the bottom, and the init method for a string, creating it from a date, has changed, so we need to update that as well. So I'm just going to click on the fix it for that. Our check mark, so this is another style change. All of these dot attributes, these are our enum values. These all have changed to a lowercase, so we can see that's the case here. It's just a style change across the board, which is going to change pretty much every line of code that you've ever written. So that's a lot of code that has changed. Next up, so we're seeing that it has a non-matching parameter. So this is talking about that function. So now we're going to see if Xcode can actually fix this. So I'm going to say fix, and it has changed this to index. Now, so it got rid of the NS, and now we're seeing some other stuff. So let's go for this top one. What it's telling me is that it's different arguments. One of these, it wants to replace this with this. So, okay, so we can see that it's shortening the name and it's adding the underscore at the front. So if we hit fix it, that will fix that. That actually might fix our problem. And now what we have, so we've inserted this extra code, which we no longer need. So I'm just going to select that and hit delete. I'm going to build again and see what happens. And so now we have a problem with the function that I previously wrote. So if you have existing code, now this is something that I wrote to work with index path, but at the time it was called NS index path, and now it's called index path. So we just need to update that here. So I just get rid of the NS In order to do that, I hit build again. We still have more issues, but I'm not seeing any red in here, so that's a good sign. So let's go ahead and see what our next issues are. So again, API changes across the board. We're going to see all of our app delegate methods have changed. Thankfully, these should work. So if we just go line by line, we just say fix it, it should fix a lot of these issues. We click on each one, just say fix, just do the top one. That tends to get both of the issues. Build it again, click on this, fix it, click on this, fix it. There's also a way to I'm not seeing it. There should be another way to do multiple fix-its, but I'm just going to go line by line since you never know what you're going to run into, but these are all pretty much the same. What we've inserted is essentially this underscore, and it made, I think, this one private. So it might have changed the signature slightly. So these have changed a little bit. So now if we build, there's one more issue, and this is an issue where okay, so I'm opening up my storyboard for the first time. There's now an initial device view in a storyboard file, which didn't exist when we were in Xcode. I think this was 7. So we now have to choose the device. Once we do that, we're going to see that these are smaller. That's going to introduce some other issues. Let me just use my trackpad to move over. So I'm going to slide over. What we're going to see is that we've got an issue related to this. If we click on this one, it says that the frame is wrong. So this is because we had sort of this abstract shape before. Now we're going to make it size to fit. So we just drag it till it snaps, and that's good. The next thing that we do is we click on this little triangle TIE fighter icon, and we will do update constraints. Since I have auto layout constraints, I need to get those updated. That should make everything go blue. So we're making progress, but we still have this issue. And this one's related to a button. I think you could see this type of issue for any of the system components. So if you use that plus button that we see here, or a cancel button, or a done button, and you add extra text to it, it's not going to display that text, and that's what this is trying to talk about. But I know that, but if you don't know that, what you're going to do is you're going to click on this because we have no idea what this means. And we're just going to say copy, and then we're going to go over to Safari. We're going to open up a new tab, and I'm going to just paste this. Now, if we just search like this, it's not going to find anything because it actually includes the file path. So we need to modify this. So I'm going to click on my search bar, and I'm going to just hold Shift and click over here and press Delete. And actually, that's really not what I want. So I'm just going to paste it in again because it's added all the escapes. What I'm doing here is I'm holding the Alt and the Shift key, and I'm just going to put my cursor on the left and then shift over with the arrow key to the right. And that's still not doing what I want. No, it is. There's just a long path. I'm sorry. So I want to go all the way till I see the warning. And you could include the storyboard since that's somewhat relevant information. We're going to press enter, and we're going to hopefully find some search. Now, these don't always give you the exact solution, but sometimes they give you a clue. And so this first one is actually going to give us a clue. Someone's having a very similar error. And we read down below, and they say, okay, did you add a title to the cancel button? Like, did you call it cancel in addition to the default text? And this is because behavior in older versions of iOS might be different, so you might have had to do things slightly different. And so we need to update that in this, or we just get more error messages and warnings when things are sort of out of line. The unfortunate thing is that this doesn't really show us where, and so we have to sort of track it down using both Stack Overflow and Google, and then just investigating our app. So we're going to look at each one of these. The suspect ones are definitely the system buttons, which look like a plus or a done button. So any of these are system buttons. If you've got a custom button, this is a custom button. I've got my own text, which I can modify, and it will update. But when I have text for this one, this right now says item. When I write add, it's going to change it to custom, but I don't want custom. I want to do a bordered add. And okay, it looks like that now gets rid of it. So it looks like they've updated Xcode, so it will remove that. But I think what happens is I added a button called item, and I was just demoing it whenever I created this project. And the new version will update it so that it removes that. So if we build, crossing our fingers, that should get rid of it, and it doesn't quite. I'm just going to clean and build again, see if that issue goes away. And now we should be able to run the app. Fortunately, it looks like that issue is sticking around, so I'm not sure if that's an artifact of Xcode or if I have another issue relating to this. So if that's the case, why don't we just jump back and see what else is here. Maybe we can find something that's more relevant. We can look at the dates, and this is a more recent date. So these people are talking about the bar button item. Maybe we need to click off of the file and click on something else. Choose device. I'm going to just try quitting. We'll stop the tasks and we'll open up the project again. Build again. And you see that the error is gone. So I think that was just an artifact in Xcode 9. That was a bug with Xcode 9 where it's just not working correctly. Okay, so now we've got the app open, but we're not home free yet. We want to make sure that the app works. So we should be able to scroll on the app. We should be able to hit the buttons, and all of a sudden, everything's frozen. We've crashed. So this is a problem. This is, again, because Swift 4 and 3 made pretty massive changes. So now we're going to have to update one more thing, and that is our IB outlets or our IB actions. So if you've made these connections, especially the actions, they've changed the method signature. And there's two ways to fix this. I'll show you both of them. We're going to go into the assistant editor, and then I am going to hide this sidebar. We look at this error message. So if you don't see this error message, make sure that you have this panel enabled on the right, and you can hide the variable view on the left. So we're just looking at this. This is a stack frame, and what's really important with a stack frame isn't always the message down below. A lot of the times it's this message right here, right above the stack frame. And this is where you need to read to learn about, okay, what's the problem? And this is a little challenging because we're working in Swift, but actually all method UI actions actually happen as Objective-C. So what we're going to see is that there is some Objective-C syntax here. You're going to see these square brackets, and this is going to talk about an Objective-C selector, which is right here. That's our add button pressed. And so the actual issue, we saw this SIG abort in our app delegate, but the actual issue is not related to the app delegate class. We have to open up our view controller. So I'm going to jump over to the main.storyboard, and we're going to make sure that this is set to automatic so that we should see the view controller class. The add button pressed is the problem that we're running into right now, and we need to fix that. So this syntax, this method signature is no longer correct because Apple changed the way this looks on the latest Swift 3 and Swift 4. This has just changed from Swift 2. So one way to fix this is to find your user interface. I'm going to hide this tab, and we're just going to focus on the UI right here. So we have this, and if we right-click on this, we can see that there's an add button sent action. That is a connection. One way to fix this problem is to just delete this. So if I click delete, we can just re-drag it over. Now, we won't be able to connect it to this code. We're actually going to have to create a new action. And we can just call this add button pressed. And what we'll see here is it says any instead of any object. We hit connect, and this is the new syntax. So if you had code down here, so let's say we had some logic here. What you're going to have to do now is just copy and paste. So you can cut this and we can paste it up here. Alternatively, you could, if we just kept it here, we can just clean up this line and get rid of these two lines and we'd be good to go. So that will make the add button work. And if we run it, we should be able to see that that works. Let's also fix the search button. So if you know you have IB actions, what you can do is you can just change this code on the right to have that underscore space and then any. And this will get the connection set up. So now if we hover, we should see that these are both connected. If I undo that, and I bring it back to this state, what we see when I hover, we don't see any connection, and that means it's not connected. When I hover over this one, we see a connection. Okay, so let's revert back to where we were. And so now if I run it again, I'll just add a message here and we'll say pressed add. We hit play and we should be able to see that these buttons both work and that they both do what we expect. If I hit plus, it says pressed add. If I click this, it says press search. So that's how to update a project from Swift 2 to Swift 4. It's a little bit of work, but you can do it. You can try and use the Xcode 8. If you download that, that's a little bit more involved. I think it would be easier to try and tweak the code, though it can be a little bit tricky to figure out how the code has changed because Apple has changed a lot of code between Swift 2 and Swift 4. So that's how to get started. And I don't think we have any other issues to fix. So this is now set up and good to go where you can start working on whatever the material or the lesson was. And so this was just a quick lesson that I made last year for working with core data. And so this is just the starting point. It doesn't actually get into too much of the core data, but we've just converted this project from Swift 2 to Swift 4. If this was helpful, let me know. If you're still having issues or questions about your own project or code is not working, let me know. My email is paul@supereasyapps.com, and you can get this sample code for this lesson if you look at the lesson link notes that I've included. All right, so thanks for watching, and I hope that you have a great day.